Hello and welcome to the Bath Studio School. I'm Laura Snook.
And I'm Oliver Bennett.
And today I am joined by Jan Robertson, who is the CEO of Focus Counselling, a counselling agency which is based in Bath and aims to provide affordable person-centred therapy in Bath. Welcome, Jan. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you.
So, I understand that the aim of Focus Counselling is to provide affordable therapy for all. What were the initial ideas and motivations behind forming Focus Counselling?
So there were several. I think after some conversations that went on in Bath 20 years ago now, 20th anniversary this year. So it was about the fact that there was plenty of private counselling in Bath, which were charging an awful lot of money, but there was no place where people could go who felt that they couldn't afford sometimes more than £2 or £3. And so we felt that something needed to be done about that. So that was the real core reason for setting up the agency.
Right. So how do you measure your services' affordability? Is it means tested or are there set prices? Or
That's a very good question. So if people can pay, we ask them to pay £45. Now that's the top, but 90% of our clients can't pay that. So then we means test that on what's coming into the joint family income each month.
Right.
And people are really good and really honest about being, real with us about how much that is. And sometimes we have to get funding because some people can't even afford the lowest rate, which we charge, which is £5. And then we have to look at getting some extra funding for those people.
Yeah. So you provide counselling. Do you only provide counselling or do you provide any other forms of therapy?
So we do one-to-one therapy. We do play therapy with our children because we start from 4 upwards. We have a lovely designated children's room for them, and we watch them play. But obviously they talk as well. But a lot is done through play and creative play. We also do couples, so that's very different work to the one-to-one work. And we run an eating disorder support group, which runs once a fortnight. That's free. We fund that ourselves, and we've had some people coming to that for a very long time. That's run for about 15 years now, and that's a very strong, supportive group. We also go into schools, so that's different work. We send counsellors into many schools in Bath, and what happens is that the core of everything we do is our person-centred therapy, but we are able to take that into our group work or our other work that we might be doing. And we've just started a training department, so we're going to be training people as well, which is really exciting.
So obviously, in recent years, CBT has had an uprise. Do you do CBT or do you mainly focus on the therapy element?
That's a really good question again. So the reason that CBT got the funding from NHS England was because basically their bid was really good and their outcomes were shown to be really good. Everybody else that does other forms of counselling, our outcomes are equally as good. But CBT has its place because it's much shorter term work. So I would say that the reason they got that was because it looked as if there was going to be good value added to the NHS work. Yeah. So that's why it was.
Okay. So when we were researching on your website, we saw that it mentioned the clergy feeling that there was a need for counselling. Does this mean that there is a religious element to the business?
Yeah. So the fact of the matter is that we are a Christian-based organisation, a little bit like the YMCA. That came out of their Christian roots. But that doesn't mean to say, like the YMCA, that people come to us because they're Christians or because they're Muslims or because whatever. So we have some Christian people that come through our doors, but we have probably 85% of our people that just come from the community of Bath. But what underpins our work is the fact that we have our Christian values. Yeah.
So, by mentioning the clergy, do you worry that it could put off non-religious people and people of alternative faiths?
I think the bit that you're referring to on our website is the why we set it up. Yeah. And that was because it was identified by some of the Christian clergy in Bath. And actually, we're just about to launch our new website. It doesn't necessarily have the same thing on that.
Okay.
And I have to tell you that over the years, it's never been an issue.
brilliant.
Yeah. And very often, when people come for their assessments with us, they will ask us that question. You know, is this? And we'll just say, no, we're here for everyone.
Okay. So it's recently been brought to my attention that half of the 11,482 children needing treatment for their mental health waited more than 18 weeks following their initial assessment. What do you feel the issues are with this kind of thing? The
NHS is overwhelmed with mental health issues in the UK at the moment, and 18 weeks is just too long. So we get an enormous amount of referrals from talking therapists because of their waiting list. So if people are able to come to us, they will refer down to us to try and help their waiting list. Yes, it's a real problem.
Yeah. So obviously this statistic is based off of children.
Yes.
Many outsourced mental health charities don't accept children.
That's right.
What's different about yours that means that you do?
The reason we do is purely because we have really experienced children's therapists in our, and we've recruited that. And we've recruited those people because of the need for it and because we have seen that nobody's doing it. Yeah, so that's the reason why.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
So the NHS mental health services are obviously under extreme pressure and they need the additional services like yours to aid them. What's the turnaround time for somebody contacting your service and somebody getting back in touch with them initially?
So we try and get people in for their assessment within a week. Within a week or two, depending, because there's only 2 of us within the agency that do them, so it's depending on how busy we are. But we would certainly get people within 2 weeks for their assessment. And then, because I'm passionate about people not having to wait, because it's no good having to wait months, we get people within the month. Okay. That is our target.
Okay, so during this waiting time between the assessments, do you have any contact with the patients?
Yeah, so we would say to them that if they're in crisis, they can call us and we'll see what we can do. And we ring them up and say, remember you've got your appointment in 2 weeks' time. We're looking forward to seeing you. So we just make them feel that actually, already they're part of Focus.
Okay, that's brilliant. So obviously there is a mental health crisis. What do you think is the cause of this?
Well, I think it's to do with the rise in social media. One of the main causes, and we have done research on this, and the correlation over the last 5 years of the rise in anxiety in young people and the rise of use of social media is without doubt one of the huge problems. And probably you may ask me, well, okay, that's young people, but what about people of 25 and over? A lot of them are using social media, but a lot of those people, it wouldn't necessarily be totally linked to social media, but it would be, I think, the stress levels that are going on in our society today. People are poor. People are depressed. Things are not good. So we've seen a huge rise in our sort of middle-age group of people coming because they're depressed. Yeah.
So what advice would you give people going through this?
Well, I think that you need to hopefully have a loving family around you, and you need to be able to say to your family, this is what I'm feeling. But not everybody has that luxury. There's some really good websites. There's some really good stuff online now, particularly something called Headspace, which is an app which a lot of our young people are using, because obviously we only see them once a week. Calm is really good. But NHS England has quite a lot of stuff on their website about mental health and stuff that you can access. But it's also, I think, and thank goodness for Prince William and Harry, it's also about us talking about mental health. And actually it's not a stigma anymore. It really isn't. And, let's all just be real about it. Yeah.
So obviously you mentioned families there.
Yes.
It must be hard for them having to deal with one of their loved ones going through such a tough thing. And they must feel helpless. What would you recommend they do to try and help them?
A lovely question. I think what I would recommend is that they allow them to talk. So actually you don't have to talk at them all the time. What you have to do is listen. And we're very bad at listening in this country. You know, it's one of the things we teach on. So it's all about allowing your loved one to be able to talk. And actually, they might not want to say very much, but they just need to be allowed to talk and say, actually, I'm having a rubbish day. But not, you know, but just really hear what they're saying. We always say, if you can get out for a walk every day, I know that sounds very simple, but, you know, trying to do some sort of exercise is really important because that raises the serotonin in the brain, which is you have a lack of. That's why you're depressed. So any sort of exercise is really good. Trying to eat as well as you can. Some people who are depressed don't eat. And trying to live very much in the moment, you know, being mindful of the good things that are happening today. So building up on the good, positive things that you've done rather than looking at the negative. So being mindful in the moment. It's really good.
Yeah. We've discussed the younger age group and the middle age group. What strategies are in place to target the mental health issues among the elderly, such as loneliness? Yeah, and that is the key thing. And in fact, only I was having a conversation with Age UK this week about it. So we have a huge problem with loneliness in our older people. And because older people think that counselling, you know, I can't go to counselling because I've failed. That's part of the stigma of it. We're trying to do something about that. But I think that it's all about, and very often about you young people being aware of grandparents and whatever. And actually, there's a group in Bath that are thinking at the moment of setting up something called a tech cafe, where they will be inviting older people to go to learn how to use Facebook or FaceTime, so that actually they can talk to their grannies. Yeah. You know, and grandpas. So I think it's just about being aware, and I think about talking about it, because it's an epidemic. Yeah, it really is. And I think if you have somebody that you know or know of, you know, encourage them to join a walking group or I mean, lots of older people go to church. There's a really good community there that will support them. It's about getting them into community. You know, the ladies joining the Women's Institute, you know, all those old things that are still around, but actually give older people a real sense of community. Yeah. So, obviously, there's a lot of upheaval at the moment within the political parties. So, do you feel that any of the political parties are supportive of mental health funding? Well, it's very interesting. Again, you should mention that, because I was watching Channel 4 News last night and they were interviewing the Minister of Health. And they are realising now that they've got to put a huge amount more money into mental health, that actually it's failing, particularly our young people. And I do think that the conversations that the Royals have had about mental health have brought it into the public arena much more. And I would say, and certainly the local politicians, our local MP is really, really good on it, Wira. I think there is definitely a feeling that they have to start really thinking about this, because mental health affects so much. It affects the economy of the country, because so many people can't go to work because they're depressed. So they've got to address it. You know. Yeah. Obviously, the suicide rates are much higher in men. Do you feel that this is due to the fact that they feel that they shouldn't discuss their problems? I think it goes back to that, yes. That old adage that actually I'm a strong man. If I go and talk to anybody, I'm weak. Hopefully that is beginning to be dispelled a bit by, you know, conversations that are going on in the media. But I would absolutely 100% say yes, it's that stigma. Yeah. Do you think that, obviously you've mentioned the Royals, do you think that these higher, more well-known people speaking out about their issues with their mental health is a positive move forward? 100% positive. Absolutely incredible. I mean, the difference there's been for young people, and actually the young people that we work with, they think it's really cool that you know, William and Harry are saying, actually, I've really suffered from depression, particularly Harry, very depressed. It's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So obviously it's International Women's Day tomorrow. Which issues do you feel impact women in particular, mostly with their mental health? Domestic abuse. Without a doubt. And it's still going on at a hugely high rate. So I certainly think that. I think bullying for women in the workplace, that still goes on. You know, that they feel they have to work harder because they're women.
That's certainly one. And I think the juggling of feeling that they have to achieve and have a career, but also to be mummies, is really tough. And I think women need huge support in that.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned the domestic violence. Is there anything that we as a nation can do to help eliminate that?
Well, that's $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that the more it's talked about, the more that we realise it's going on all the time, then that's got to be a good thing. I don't know if you know about the case recently of the lady who killed her husband with a hammer. You probably read about that. And now she's having a retrial because she'd had years of emotional abuse. That's going to be an incredibly helpful retrial for women, actually. But a lot of organisations are doing a lot of really good work in this area. But it's just about talking about it. And also, let's not forget, it doesn't always happen to women.
There's a stigma around mental health, but men in particular are less willing to talk about their own mental health. What do you think we can do to encourage more men to get help?
I think I think it's happening. We've certainly seen our figures at Focus rise, where we've got nearly half and half now, which is over the last 5 years hugely significant. I think it's a lot to do with what goes on in the media about actually men feeling that it's okay, you know, television programmes where show men going off and having counselling and stuff like that. I think it's conversations that you young need to have, you know, that I actually went and had some counselling and it was fine. You know, if a male says that is has a real impact. So I think it comes from your age group upwards, really, just trying to dispel this sort of thing that it's not cool to have counselling, particularly for boys. Yeah, so I think it's something that's got to get embedded in. But I mean, how helpful it is, isn't it, when Prince Harry says, you know, that really helpful. Yeah.
Do you think there's anything schools could be doing to further support young children with mental health issues?
Well, I think that obviously we know that NHS England wants every school to have a counsellor, and I think that's being achieved. I think that most schools are doing a really good job. Some are a little bit further behind, but I think most are realising now that they've got to sort it out. And we have lots of conversations with schools. Schools in universities are knowing that they can't cope with the mental health issues that are going on. So behind the scenes, there's a huge amount of conversation going on. And some schools in Bath do really, really well with this, and they're not just putting counsellors in, but they're putting mentors in, you know, and all sorts of support. So certainly in this area, I think that the schools are doing really well. I can't speak for the rest of the country, but I do think it is happening, and it might be a bit slow in some places, but it definitely is happening. Yeah.
Do you think perhaps running smaller schools would help with mental health issues in the youth?
I do. I mean, you know, when you've got 1,000 pupils, it's really tough to pick up those people, and a lot of people get missed. Yeah, they do.
If I could add something here, I personally struggled with my mental health.
Yeah.
Whilst at a bigger school.
Yep.
So the decision was made to move out to a smaller school. However, unfortunately, these smaller schools are now getting shut down.
Yeah.
Do you think that is a negative move in terms?
I think it's a wrong move. I absolutely do. I mean, what this sort of school does in supporting its pupils is unbelievable. And I think that just to think we have to have, all the schools have to have 700 to over 1,000 children is not a good investment. Yeah, absolutely 100%.
Do you think there are any circumstances that make mental health problems among men more likely?
Yes, I do. I think it's the lack. I think that there's this whole culture that men don't talk. I think it's deeply embedded in our society, and actually sometimes, if I'm honest with you, men do find it much more difficult to talk. So I think the opportunities that we can give any man from sort of, I mean, I suppose we're talking about teenagers and adults, any opportunities where us women can get our men to talk and our young people to talk, and actually to encourage them that actually that's fine. I think it possibly has got to begin at home. And certainly, you know, all of us that work in mental health, with our own children and the people that we work with, we're having those conversations all the time. So I think it has to start from home, hopefully, and then just hopefully the schools are picking that up, that it's okay to talk, and then it just goes on into the wider community. But I think somehow it has got to start somewhere from where we are right from the start, because if you grow up in a home where it's okay to communicate and it's okay to say you're not okay as a boy, then that carries on into your adult life, because you realise, actually, I can go and get some help and that's fine. It doesn't feel like a stigma to you.
So kind of moving on from that point, do you think that there is a genetic link with mental illnesses? There is
100% link between depression and Asperger's, which causes a lot of mental health issues, and yes, 100%. And if we talk to our clients on assessment and we say, is there any mental health in the family, 100% there will be. And it's not always parents. It can be grandparents, aunt and uncle, but it's always in there. Yeah. It is. Yeah. And we have to accept that, yeah.
The neuroscientist Dr. Gina Rippon has shed new light on the lack of difference between men and women's brains. What impact do you think this knowledge may have on mental health issues?
I would say that it would be really encouraging to know that actually, we're working quite similarly, and actually, so that would say to me that actually the stigma is in the male and female, not in the neuroscience, which is really exciting. And I think I probably would agree with that, having boys and girls myself. So, yeah, I think it's all about stigma, and that's what we've got to break down. And in fact, even Bath Rugby, which is sort of male and all of that, they're doing a lot more stuff on mental health with their players, which is really great.
Well, that's brilliant for young, aspiring sports stars as well.
Exactly.
That should take the pressure off of them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much for coming in and answering all of our questions today.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.